is a voice that speaks. There is a voice that speaks to my fearful heart. It tells me you're not far. It's in the words I read. In the words I read, I see the red letters are love pouring from your scars. Speak to me, speak to me, speak to me. I wanna hear you loud and clear. I wanna hear you loud and clear. Loud and clear. You can say anything, I'm listening. Just wanna know that you are near. I wanna hear you loud and clear. Loud and clear. Loud and clear. It's only speak to me, speak to me, speak to me. I wanna hear you loud and clear.
Hi, good morning, church. Good morning. Guys, I am excited today. I'm going to try to keep it calm because you know how I get really super spastic. But I am excited today because today we continue in our sermon series. Last week we did a quick pause. Today we continue and we're looking at a new section, which you can tell by the video, reset. Reset is pretty simple. The concept is pretty simple. The idea is that as long as you have breath in your lungs, it is never ever too late to hit that reset button and start over. That's the idea, because look, we're going to be looking at, well, today and the next 6 weeks, 7 weeks total. Alright, don't make me do math. That's why I don't even preach from the book of Numbers, okay? Over the next 7 weeks, let's keep it simple. We're going to be looking at 7 letters that were written to 7 churches in the book of Revelation. If you guys want to turn there now, we'll start in a few minutes. By the way, the book of Revelation is the last book in the Bible, trying to keep it super, super simple for the next 7 weeks. Alright? But as we see the letters that go through these 7 letters, you're going to notice that they're very short. They're very brief. Okay? There's not much, as far as lettering goes, there's not much to them. We could fit all 7 of them on one postcard. That's how short they are. But the depth of the messages that are contained, guys, that is just a lifetime of chewing for us. As I say, we chew on it. There's a lifetime of that for sure. And as we go through this, I want you to understand, okay, the letters, they weren't written to us, okay? But they were written for us, all right? Now, while you're thinking, glad they weren't written to us, keep this in mind. I honestly believe with all my heart that Jesus is going to speak to us. That through the messages, through those letters, He's going to speak to us as a church, and He's going to speak to us individually as well. And so I would ask that we have our ears open, just like in the song in the video. I chose that specifically as well. Speak to me. I'm listening. We need to have that as we go into this, looking at these letters. All right? And again, these were real letters. All right? I know we just spent 8 weeks looking at these stories that Jesus made up, okay? But these are real. All right, these were real letters. They were written to real churches with real people, with real issues and real warnings. Okay, so we need to make sure that we understand that. Again, not written to us, but written for us. Okay, so there's a wealth in there for us to glean from. All right, and as we go into the text, we're actually, I told you guys go to, well, the text says Revelation chapter 2. I actually want to start in chapter 1. So we'll flip back to chapter 1 real quick. We're going to start there because I want to give you a little more information about what the book is about before we kind of springboard into the actual letter itself. Make sense? Okay, makes sense, absolutely. Actually, like 2 people were like, yo. So anyways, yes, it makes sense. Okay, stay with me, guys. Again, I'm excited. You might need to go grab some coffee. I'll wait. I'll give you like a 2-minute intermission. If you need that, that's good. Again, you're going to see why I'm excited in just a moment. I'll spill the beans, okay? But the book of Revelation is written by John, a guy, not this John, but a different guy named John. All right, the Apostle John. The deal is that he did what Jesus said to do. Jesus said, all right, the Great Commission, remember? In Matthew 28, and he says, here's the deal, guys. Go and make disciples and baptize them and teach them everything that I've commanded you. And John said, oh, yeah, okay. He went out and did it. He did that, and because he did that, and he did that very, very passionately. He was very, very zealous for the Lord. He went out and did those things, and it got him into some trouble. Actually, it got him arrested, and it got him thrown into prison. And at the time of the writing, John is in prison. He's actually on an island of Patmos. We discussed some of these things months ago. My very first sermon here, it was like 6 months ago, by the way. Anyway, we discussed some of those things, but he's on this island of Patmos. Remember, it's an island, but it's also a prison. Think of Alcatraz. Very similar. The Alcatraz of the Aegean Sea area. Okay, that's kind of where he's at. And the text says that on the Lord's day, that's the Sunday, he's in the Spirit. And so it really just tells us he's worshiping. He's praising God, and then out of nowhere, Jesus shows up, which would be super awesome. Can you imagine? He shows up, he speaks, and it says like a trumpet. Right? With a voice like a trumpet. I mean, that's a shout. I didn't even share it with you the way it's written when we did it back long ago because I wanted your vote. I didn't want to shout at you. But think about that, like a trumpet. He shouts out, write what you see on a scroll. And John, I can imagine, is like shaking in his boots and what in the world was that? And so he does. And so Jesus shows him things and tells him things, and he writes what he sees and he writes what he hears and he puts it all together, and it's in this book, the book of Revelation. So that's kind of the start, but there's more to the story, as Paul Harvey would say, right? And so I want to get to that. So if you guys are ready, let's go ahead and start reading chapter 1. Throwing you a curveball already. Chapter 1, verse 1. We'll see what this book is all about, okay? So here we go. Verse 1. This book is this. It's the revelation from Jesus Christ, which God gave him to show his servants what must soon take place. He made it known by sending his angel to his servant John, who testifies to everything he saw, that is, the word of God and the testimony of Jesus Christ. Okay, so guys, pretty simple. In a nutshell, this is, revelation means a revealing, by the way, an unveiling. This is the unveiling of Jesus Christ. It's the revealing. Jesus is basically saying, hey guys, look, in this book, I'm right here. You don't need to look because I'm right here. You don't need to go searching because all you got to do is listen and you'll hear me. I'm right here. And guys, what better book could we study from as we go through this series? This year-long, not learning about Jesus, but getting to know him. What better way than to see Jesus just say, here, I'm right here. Here I am, right in front of you. And you don't need to look. You don't need to search because I'm right here. I'm just going to show everything about myself to you and share. Isn't that awesome? That is a blessing, guys. I love that. It's partially why I get super excited. The next part is why I really get excited, because this book is, like I said before, this is the one book in the Bible that comes with a money-back guarantee. And I know some of you know what I'm saying, and others of you are thinking, what is this guy drinking in the morning? What kind of coffee is that? Well, what I mean is this. Let's read the next verse, verse 3, and then I'll share what I mean. Verse 3 says this. Blessed is the one who reads aloud the words of this prophecy, and blessed are those who hear it and take to heart what is written in it, because the time is near. So I love that because there's a blessing there. We get up in the morning and say, well, I'm blessed. And that's true. We can walk around and tell people, well, I'm blessed by God. We can list, we can count them one by one, we really can. And we can share them with others, but this specifically says we're blessed. Look, I'm blessed today because it says blessed is the person who reads this aloud. That's what I get to do. That's my job today. It's super exciting. Over the next 7 weeks, I am extra blessed because I get to read it out loud to all of you. But you guys are also extra blessed because it says, blessed are those who hear it and take to heart what it says. Isn't that cool? I'm sorry. That's just my coffee rush and I didn't have coffee. I'm excited about that. I think that is super, super awesome. We have extra blessing because we're reading through this book. Again, the only book that comes with a money-back guarantee. You read it, you will be blessed. Period. You hear it, you will be blessed. Period. I love that. I do. Okay, now let's go to chapter 2. All right? Let's see if I might need to calm down and get the paper bag and breathe for a couple minutes. Go to chapter 2. We'll actually start into looking at the first letter. The first letter is written to Ephesus. That might sound familiar to you, right? There's the book of Ephesians, right? We know that. It's the same church. Okay? Same church, same city. In fact, that city, Ephesus, back in the first century, was the second largest city in the world. The population of 250,000 people. It had seaports. And in fact, I have a map, but I didn't bring it. Sorry, I'll try to remember a map next week so I can kind of show you and also map out where we're going so you can see the 7 churches and where they're located, okay? Somebody remind me of that next week. Remind me. Send me a text. Okay? I'll try to remember to put that in the PowerPoint. But guys, listen, it's this great location because it's sitting right there on the sea. There's ships that come in and out. It's an excellent place for trade, for commerce, for business, and for religion. well, and I kind of hesitantly say that because it's a place of false religion, false gods, false teachings. This was where you wanted to go if you were looking for anything false. It was there. Ephesus, that was the place. In fact, the city had the Temple of Diana. That was one of the gods or goddesses that they actually worshipped. The Temple of Diana was actually one of the seven wonders of the world. So you just, from a building standpoint, you can kind of get an idea of the draw of the people that were there. So false gods, false religion, all this false teaching. Paul was there for 2 years. 2 years, and then he was literally run out of the city. And the church, I got to tell you, it had some heavy hitters as far as leadership. Paul was their preacher at one time. I couldn't even imagine sitting in a congregation where Paul was the preacher. And it goes to Apollos. Most of you don't even know Apollos. Powerful speaker. He did some great things in that church. I don't even have time to go into details on that. And then after that, Timothy, a guy we know, a young guy, Timothy. And then even John himself, the apostle, was the preacher there for a little while before he was arrested and thrown into prison. So if you look at the sheet and you look at the rundown, boy, that's pretty impressive. And I would think you would want powerful leadership in that church because of where it's at. Can you imagine? I'm going to plant a church. What are you thinking? I was thinking Ephesus. What? Are you kidding me? You're like the worst location that you... I mean, not you shouldn't say the worst. I mean, they need it the most, but from a preacher's perspective and a church planting perspective, that's tough. It's tough. And I can tell you they went through hardship after hardship after hardship. And Jesus, we're going to get into the text now, he does a little bit of commending them and a little bit of non-commending, a little bit of fussing as well. So he sees it all. So if you guys are ready, let's go ahead and read Revelation 2. And we'll start in verse 1. Making sure it's on the screen. Alright, to the angel of the church in Ephesus write. So he's just saying, write these words to the angel in the church in Ephesus. These are the words of him who holds the 7 stars in his right hand and walks among the 7 golden lampstands. Okay, so pause there for a moment. Because some of you kind of have that, like, deer in the headlight look. Right? You're sitting there going, headlights. I can tell. I read one verse and some of you are thinking, I'm lost. I'm confused. What in the world does that mean? So I want to explain it a little bit before we move forward, okay? Actually, I don't need to do a whole lot to explain it. Jesus explains it backwards. Just you move back just a little ways. In Revelation chapter 1, verse 20, this is what Jesus says. He explains it for us. It's on the screen. If you don't want to turn there, it's okay. Or hopefully it is. It will be. There it is. Awesome. Okay, so here we go. As for the mystery of the 7 stars, which you saw in my right hand, and the 7 golden lampstands, here it is. The 7 stars are the angels of the 7 churches. And the 7 lampstands are the 7 churches. Okay, so pretty simple. The 7 lampstands are the 7 churches. That makes sense, right? I mean, honestly, if you think about it, the church, we are to be a light in the community. That's our role as a church. As Christians, we are to let our light shine before men. So it makes sense that the lampstand is the church. That's our job. That's our role, to light, to be a light in the darkness. And then the stars, this is kind of cool. The stars are the angels of the 7 churches. I think is really cool also. Let me explain this, because I'm getting the deer in the headlight look. This is kind of funny from up here. I should take a picture occasionally. You should see it. It's pretty cool. Anyway, the 7 stars are the angels. Now, if you go through the book of Revelation, 75 times you're going to see the word angel. And when you see the word angel, it will usually, most of the time, it's going to mean an angelic being. They were messengers, okay, so don't take away from that. But 75 times, let me rephrase that, over 75 times. 75 times you're going to see specifically angelic being. But lo and behold, how many times do you think it doesn't mean it? 7. 7 times because of the text. 7 times you will see the word angel in the text, and it doesn't mean angelic being. It means messenger. Okay, it does mean messenger anyways, but it's not an angelic being, it's a messenger. So Jesus is essentially saying, do this. Write this letter and send it to the messenger of the church in Ephesus. Messenger of the church, the preacher, the pastor, the minister, whatever you want to call that guy, me, whatever you want to call that guy. That's who he is. I know some of you were asking me when I first got here, well, do we call you preacher? Preacher? You just call me Angel. Angel Ray. Gives me meaning to, Ray, you're such an angel. I'm like, yes. Don't do that. I'm just joking around with that. But that's the messenger. That's the preacher. I love. I can't even put into words. I love that Jesus says, I hold those guys in my right hand. That is a really humbling thought. And I love it. I do. I love that. But I also love that he walks among the churches. Guys, I don't know what you felt when you got out of your car this morning other than the blazing heat. But walking into this building, I don't know what you're thinking, I don't know what you were feeling as you walked in here, but I want to tell you this. I believe this. And I honestly believe, I really do, I believe that Jesus walks among us here at Goshen Christian Church. And I wouldn't say it if I didn't mean it. And if I didn't feel it, because I've seen it. I've been at other churches, I've been at 2 others where the lampstand was removed. And at first you don't know, because when you walk in, you're like, oh, okay, everything's normal. The singers sing, the preacher preaches. Everybody fellowships, the prayers will pray. Everything goes on as normal. You don't really see until you really kind of see through the Spirit's eyes. And you get in tune with the Spirit, you start to see, oh, there's some dysfunction, and we are crumbling, and we're falling apart. And then it's really obvious, and then boom, you notice that lampstand is gone. So I would be honest. Well, I might not be that honest, but I would at least not be standing here saying, oh, I believe he walks among us. If I didn't believe it, I do believe it.
Oh, yes.
But guys, listen, the day he stops, if he ever does, we're in trouble. We are toast. We are hosed. I went out and I took some time walking around the parking lot today, as I try to do when it's not snowing, raining, or both, or blazing hot, which it already was. Anyways, I try to take some time to walk through the parking lot, pray over the service, pray over the sermon, pray over all of you, everything that's just God's Word and His message and His Spirit is here and it's felt in every single moment from the moment you walk in the door. And as I was doing that, I know Rick pulled up and it was kind of funny. I'm standing there and I look up and I see these birds and there's like 15 birds and they're doing the circle thing, right? Because there's something dying, right? There's a dead something somewhere. And I'm walking and I look up and I was like, oh, what are you trying to tell me, Lord? They're just circling our parking lot. And I was getting a little freaked out. They moved on and they circled next door and they circled a little further. So I don't think it was us. Like birds with some bad smell. Maybe they smelled something foul. Oh, this is as good as a laugh. Anyways, so I spent that time with that. But guys, I just got to tell you, I really believe there's a subtle warning in that, just in that text. And we got to know what we're doing is what we're supposed to be doing. That as a church, we better be doing whatever it takes, biblically, morally, and ethically, to bring in the lost and the unchurched in the community and be the light that we're supposed to be. Because if not, He's just going to remove that lampstand. So I think that even if it doesn't say it, I think there's just really a subtle and yet not so subtle warning in that, okay, for us. So that's I just want to explain verse 1. I just want to get that down and get that out of the way. I think it's really awesome just to be able to break those things down and see how God speaks and what His heart is and where His heart is. And so let's move on now and start into verse 2 because this is where He really starts speaking to the church. He said, write these words, these are the words. Verse 2 says this, I know your deeds and your toil and perseverance and that you cannot tolerate evil men. And you put to the test those who call themselves apostles, and they are not. And you found them to be false. And you have perseverance, and have endured for my name's sake, and have not grown weary. Guys, it's important that he says perseverance twice. I don't want you to think that's a typo. He didn't stutter. He really says, I respect you guys, right? I give you guys props, I guess we would say in today's lingo. He's really saying, guys, I get it. I know you. I understand for real. I know where you're at. I get what it's like to be a church in the first century in Ephesus of all places. I know what it's like to have people reject you, reject your message. I know what it's like to have people cursing you when you're trying to help them and shepherd them. He says, I get it. I fully understand. I know the battle that you're up against. And you could have quit. You could have thrown in the towel long ago. You could have walked away. And I probably would have been thinking, yeah, I would have done the same thing. Maybe not Jesus saying that, but you know what I'm saying? It's like, he gets it. I totally understand where you're at. I connect. It's tough. You didn't quit. You didn't throw in the towel. You persevered. And I commend you for that. See, perseverance is for times when the wheels fall off. And nobody goes to the Bahamas on vacation and they're like, man, I persevered through that vacation, let me tell you. The beach alone was just brutal. Nobody says that. It's for when things crash around us and the wheels fall off and everything just seems to just hit an end, and it gets to that point and you're ready to quit and you want to give up and you want to throw in the towel, but you don't. That's perseverance. Maybe for some of you here today, that's the message you need to hear. Maybe for someone here today, that's simply what you needed to hear in the message. He knows what you've gone through over the past months, over the past years. He knows the struggle. He knows the brokenness. He knows the heartache and the pain. He's seen the tears. He's heard the cries. And he says, you could have quit, but you didn't quit. You didn't give up. You're sitting right here today as proof of that. Maybe that's the message you need to hear. Maybe it's just that. Simple enough. See, when Jesus starts to really look at us, He starts to really get down to the nitty-gritty and search us, he'll look under the rugs and he'll look in the closets and check under the beds. He will look everywhere to see if there's anything that's hidden. And He did the same thing with this church in Ephesus. He said, there's so many good things you guys have done. Man, you've done some great things, and I commend you for sticking with it and not quitting, not giving up. But, verse 4 starts with, but I have this against you, that you have left your first love. See, Jesus knew that they didn't love Him like they used to. They loved Jesus. Don't hear me wrong. As a church, they did love Jesus. They really did. But He wasn't number one anymore. He was just kind of scooted off to the side, and they got busy with doing what they were doing. And there's some good in the work that they did, but when they start to scoot Jesus off to the side and He's not the focus, then that's not a good thing. That's why I keep coming back and saying, guys, everything we do, it should all be about Jesus. Every breath, every word, every thought, every motive, every step we take. I've always said this, the tongues in our mouths and the tongues in our shoes should always move in the same direction. What we do should be what we say, and what we say should be what we do, and we should always be doing everything and saying everything for Jesus. Every single thing, period. And never ever stop, and never give up on that. He says, I know I was number one, but now I'm not. I didn't stop loving you. Why did you stop loving me? What's going on? What's up with that? Guys, it's not just a story from 2,000 years ago. We still see it today. I know people who have come into the church and they're on fire. Well, not 100%. You kind of got to get them to that point where they get there and it's like sponges, and they just want to read everything and know everything and hear everything. And they're like, my goodness, okay, you got to go home now because it's midnight. You know, kind of thing. They're on fire. You can't shut them up. You can't slow them down. You can't extinguish them. I mean, you just can't. And they learn and they learn and they learn, and then they're baptized. And I tell you what, they leave wet footprints for months and months as they walk away from the church building, because they're out there sharing Jesus. They're not beating people on the head with their Bible. They're not being confrontational. They're being clarificational. Is that even a word? I always said, don't think of confrontation, think of clarification. Think of that. It's clarification. Hey, you really don't know who Jesus is. Let me clarify who He is. Let me share who He is in my life, what He's done, and what He can do for you in your life. And they go out there and they do those things. But then sometimes over time, they lose that.
Yes.
And it diminishes. As a side note, I know the world does that. But I also believe the church can be kind of equal in doing that as well. Putting out that flame. So they used to jump in and serve anywhere and everywhere. And I'll wave and I'll shake hands and I'll hand out bulletins and whatever you need to do, I'll do it. And they go from that to, well, I miss church. It just kind of, it spirals. It doesn't just happen 2,000 years ago. It's still today. These things still happen. We see it in our relationships, which I'll talk about in just a moment as well, because it's the same that's there. It's a problem. And Jesus says, here's the deal. You left your first love. Now, other verses, or other translations will say you lost your first love. Either way you slice it, Jesus is saying, I used to be number one, and now I'm not. And we see people compartmentalize all over the place today, don't we? Got this little compartment over here. This is church. This one over here is Jesus. This one's my family, this one's work. We make all these compartments, and Jesus is saying, don't do that. Put me right at the center and let everything in the world, your world, revolve around Jesus, period. And that's the way we have to live, guys. But they weren't doing that, which, to say as an understatement, was a problem. So what's the solution? Because that's the problem. And if we don't want to get there, right, we need to make sure that we understand it. If we don't want to be there, what's the solution to it so that we can guard against it? Well, Jesus gives us the solution in verse 5. He says all those things, all the great, all the good, all the bad, all the ugly. And then in verse 5 he says, therefore, as in therefore what I just said, remember from where you have fallen and repent. And do the deeds you did at first, or else I am coming to you and will remove your lampstand out of its place. So he gives us this threefold challenge, essentially. And the first step requires a good memory. So some of us are in trouble already, myself included. He says, here's the deal. Step 1, remember what it used to be like. Go back to that moment when it was just you and me, and things were super awesome and super epic and new in your life, and you went around and everything you said was all about me. Everything you felt was about me. You couldn't put your Bible down even to sleep or to eat. And think about those. Go back to those days when I was number one in your life. And then when you find that, then look at where you're at now and see how far you've fallen. Ouch. But it needs to be said. See how far you've fallen. And then from there, repent. Hit that reset button. That's what this is all about. Repent. Hit that reset button. Start over and start doing the things you did at first. So I used to share this concept in marriage counseling. I remember counseling two specific couples. It worked well with one and it didn't work at all with the other. That's not on the teacher though. Let's get that clear, okay? One couple came in and they literally were on the brink of divorce. They were living separately. The lady kept coming to church and saying, you know what, I think it's done, I think it's over. You know, he's talking divorce, and they I don't know what to do, Ray. And so he's agreed to come in and meet with you so we can meet one time. And I'm thinking, one time? Oh, yeah, no pressure. My goodness. So they came in and they met with me, and I listened to a little bit of what they had to say. And then I gave them this suggestion. I didn't tell them it was Bible. I just said, here's what you need to do. You need to love each other. And of course, you're probably sitting there now thinking, duh. I mean, anybody could give that advice. Duh, you could get no divorce. Just love each other. But I got to tell you, there was some brokenness there. Actually, there was a lot of brokenness. There was some betrayal. There was some lack of trust. There was some bitterness. There was some anger. There was a lot in that marriage just to try to navigate through in one setting. It just wasn't going to happen. Just bare bones is you got to love each other. They didn't feel like they wanted to love each other. They've been beyond that. That's done and gone. That's over there. I don't love you. I don't feel like I love you. And so that's where they sit. But I said, dude, you got to go back. You got to go back and do the first things. Go back and do those things you used to do. Listen, I think I can use this as an illustration. Most of us in this room are either married or have been married, so you can probably relate to this. Think back for a moment to that time when you met your spouse. Think about those first few dates. You guys got it? Some of the guys are frowning, some of the ladies are smiling. This is great. Didn't expect that. Think back to those first few dates. When I think about it with Shannon, I've been practicing this all week, and it's this bright, super sunny, warm, fuzzy, just incredibly good feeling vision that I have. It's warm and fuzzy. It fits perfectly. It's like a glove. It's mine. And I'm not talking weather. I'm just saying that memory. Remember those moments? Everything is new, and it's exciting, and it's fresh, and you want to know everything about them, and you share everything about yourself, and you go everywhere together, and you do everything together, and you just can't ever be separated. It's just so awesome. Life just takes this new level, and you're like, woo, you're just on this high all the time. You fall in love, and it grows, and you get married. Yeah. But then what happens is, over time, sometimes those marriages, those couples end up hearing the words, I don't love you. Or I don't love you like I used to. And just like it didn't fall apart overnight, it's not healed overnight. Go back to the first things. You do what you did at first. You talk to each other like you used to. You share with each other like you used to. You serve each other like you used to. You go to movies if that's what you did. You go for walks if that's what you did. You go back to those first things and you start there again. You hit that reset button and you do it. And you hit the button over and over again if you have to, because that's the concept of reset. So it's the same with our marriages and relationships. It's the same thing Jesus is saying. He's giving good advice. He says, go back to the things you did at first. And then he concludes with these words in verse 7. In fact, every one of the letters are going to conclude very similar. Whoever has ears, let them hear what the Spirit says to the churches. He's saying, I'm saying all this stuff. I've showed you the problem. I've given you the solution. Do you have ears? Are you listening? Because I'm telling you what it is. And so he's trying to make it plain as day for us. So guys, do we have ears? Are we hearing? Are we listening? And as we talked about weeks ago, more important than hearing God is our response to God. What is our response? He says, go back and do the first things. You know, it's all about love. I know that the sermon title, You've Lost That Loving Feeling. It's not about that. It's not. I left it there. I tell you, I wrestled with it over the week. Gosh, should I change it? Should I make it this? Because I don't want you thinking it's about that. It's just a loving feeling. It's not. It's about connecting with the heart of God. But if that song is in your head, go ahead and raise your hand. Ha ha! Power of suggestion. So every time you think of that song, every time it runs through your head, and even like weeks from now, you're like, Ray, I still have that stupid song in my head. That's okay, because I hope that will help you connect to the message that this is not what Jesus is talking about. He's not talking about just losing that loving feeling. He's talking about a real connection with the heart of God. It's all about love. Listen, I believe love is the greatest force in the universe, honestly. I can't prove it, I can't quantify it, but I can tell you this. Paul said in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, the love chapter, kind of has a feel to it, the love chapter. Anyways, he said specifically, look, when all things are said and done, three things will remain: faith, hope, and love, and the greatest of these is love. And you think, wow, greater than hope? Greater than faith? I mean, the Bible says it's impossible to please God without faith, but love is greater than that. Yeah, because faith and hope are great, but love is the greatest. Jesus was asked, what's the greatest commandment? And he said, I'll tell you what the greatest commandment is. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, with all your strength. And you know what? The second one is just like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. It's all about love, guys. It's all about loving Jesus. It's all about getting back to square one. And listen, love can be lost. I don't mean like your car keys, but it can be exchanged for someone or for something, and that hurts. That's heartbreaking. Jesus is at that moment where his heart is broken. He's saying, I didn't leave. I didn't stop loving you. Why did you stop loving me? When did that happen? It can be heartbreaking. And guys, look, it can be rekindled also. Jesus says, all you got to do is these three things here. Remember back to when it began. And if you need to repent, if you need to hit that restart, you go ahead and hit that restart button. And then you do the things that you did at first. So you start reading God's Word. You start studying His Word. You start spending time in prayer. You start just spending time in His presence. You don't know what to say, that's okay. That's okay. It was already shared with us this morning. What happens? The Spirit groans and intercedes for us when we don't know what to say. There might be a moment where you're just sitting down and you've gone through the perseverance and the wheels have fallen off and the training wheels are busted. And you're sitting back thinking, I am so close to quitting and throwing the towel. I don't even know what to pray. That's okay. Just be still and know that He is God. Just open up and spend some quiet time with no TV, no phone, no newspapers, no neighbors. No kids, if that's possible. Just quiet. Wherever you can go that's quiet. And just sit there and open up and say, Lord, speak to me. I'm listening. Speak to me. I don't even know what to pray. I've been in those moments. I don't even know what to say. I have no idea what to pray. And the Spirit intercedes, and it's a wonderful thing, guys. Because that's His love for us. Get back to square one. Get back to the roots. Start serving. Serve God. Serve man. I've already mentioned there's room for you to serve We're starting a second service over the next 20 years. Okay? So between now and the next 20 years, we will have a second service here. There's opportunity for you to serve. I need 7 people. There's opportunity for you right now in this service to serve. Right here, right now. Serving God, serving man. Getting back to where it started, where it all began. That's what it takes, guys. Do we have ears? That's just really the question. Do we have ears? Do we hear? It's all about love. It's all about Jesus. Shocking. What do you know? A biblical message. It's all about Jesus. It's all about loving Jesus. So guys, let me just say, if you're sitting here this morning, you persevered. That's good. That's a good thing. But if you're sitting here this morning, and you can resonate with the words, and maybe Jesus isn't number one. I get that too. Because I've been there and I've done that. So if you need to hit that restart button, today's the day. So if you're here as an immersed believer, and you're ready to do that, you see that you need to do that, I should say. That maybe Jesus isn't, you didn't kick him to the curb, but there are other things that have kind of stepped into place, and that love has been exchanged here and there.